It's my great pleasure to be able to speak to Auntie Mulara this morning. Auntie Mulara is situated in Brisbane, which is a long way away from Perth, where I am, about 4 hours in an aeroplane. But Auntie Mulara has worked extensively over the previous years with a very highly regarded Noongar elder. In fact, you're calling her Nana there. So this is somebody who is very, very highly recognised as a spiritual leader for her people, and who's resident nearby me. And so, Auntie Mulara, I wonder if you could introduce yourself, if you could talk a little bit about your own journey, so your time with Nana, and how all of that worked, and how not necessarily so much how the way in which information was shared with you, and the ways in which you've, but certainly the ways in which you've become an emissary for Noongar and for Indigenous people throughout the continent, as we were just talking about. Australia is made up of, is it 40 countries?
Actually, there's like 250 Aboriginal nations or mobs. The term nation is really English, a colonial term, but we would say tribes or our mob, our tribe. Yeah.
Sure. So that's an incredibly important thing for people listening here to understand, that it's a big continent, but it's made up of many, many people, and the people are the nations or the mobs. So I'm going to stop talking before I embarrass myself. So Auntie Mulara, if you could just introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me here. But and to start this conversation, I feel the need to call in the grandmothers. So if we could just have an opening prayer.
Sure.
So I'd just like to call in the Divine Grandmothers and the Grandmothers Council, and I call in Nana. She has just passed over and is sitting with them again, has returned to the Grandmothers Council, and we call her in, and the totem of her totem, Black Eagle, call her in. She holds the law still, even though she's not physically with us, she's still with us. And we call on the law keepers and the law holders of this continent of Australia, and the old people who have passed, who held the knowledge and the wisdom and passed it down for over 85,000 years. And so what I'm to share with you, I acknowledge has come through their teachings. And we call on the Divine Grandfathers as well, the Brotherhood of Light, who support the grandmothers in their work. We call on Mother Earth and the Spirit of the land, wherever each of your listeners are sitting. We call on the ancestral custodians of those places. Namaste, Nanga, thank you for being here. So I feel to give a blessing through to all of the listeners, and to say that you are so loved, you are so divinely loved. And at this time in particular, the message is clear that we've got this. The grandparents have got this. Grandmothers have got this. The grandfathers have got this. And it's now up to each of us as humanity evolves to believe in their spiritual awakening, to believe that they are divinely connected, and to believe and trust in the divine consciousness of all there is. So we are going through an upgrade in our consciousness. The consciousness field is actually in the earth. And one of the spiritual laws is as above, so below. That consciousness field, as we connect as electromagnetic energy, ourself with the electromagnetic energy of earth, we connect to the consciousness grid. And then as we awaken, the earth can expand. She is expanding anyway, with or without us. We need to go with her and understand that that expansion requires all of us to drop that which no longer serves us and to step in to the new version of ourselves. And this particular time is perfect for us all to really consider what is important for each of us as we're evolving as a spirit soul into the new world, into the new dreaming, and the new songlines that are calling us there. Nanga, thank you. They're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I've always known that I was Aboriginal. I've got a light skin. Comes from my mother's line. So my mother's father is an Aboriginal man from Wilcannia, New South Wales area. My mother's mother is from the Broken Hill area, also just on the border of New South Wales, South Australia. And my mother also was born there. My father doesn't have that an Indigenous lineage, but collectively I'm a mixture, as many of us are these days. The bloodlines run through me, so the different songlines through me is Aboriginal, Australian Aboriginal, Afghani from the camel drivers in Central Australia who intermarried with the local Aboriginal women, and the Scottish, Irish, and I think possibly through my father a bit of Italian and English. So there you go. I've got it all covered. Celtic, Indian subcontinent, Australia. But as a young woman growing up, it gets stronger. This Indigenous drop of blood, we call it, and my first teacher turns out to be from the tribe of where I was acknowledged, because my mother's father was unknown to her. And I now know the story. He was an Adnyamathanha man that's in the northern Flinders Ranges of South Australia, who fell in love with my grandmother. And because she was very white-skinned, he was very dark-skinned, you couldn't have that marriage. And in fact, I'm told by the Adnyamathanha elder who has the stories, he said that this is his cousin, he nearly got killed for having that relationship. And so, in those days, lots of stories got hidden, or the secrets got buried, but the grandmothers kept a record of who was who in the zoo, always kept that record. And it's come back now, but the way in which it came back was really quite interesting. So in 2012, in fact, when I met Nana, I was part of a grandmother drum project in Australia. It was a healing drum, a beautiful Indigenous sacred drum. It's a very big drum. And we went through all different communities all around Australia. And when we came into the Noongar community and were welcomed by Uncle Noel and Nana and the beautiful Noongar people there, just an incredible gift of acceptance and welcome. And it was at that place where I was taken in, and other elders saw who I was travelling around, and in fact I got welcomed back to Adnyamathanha on this journey. But the Noongar connection came through Nana at that time, and that therein began the levels of initiation with her. But prior to that, I had found that this drop of blood was pretty potent, and I travelled all around Australia and sat with elders, mostly law women. Some law men have taught me as well, but mostly the law women. And Auntie Peggy from, I'm not sure that she's with us anymore, so I probably shouldn't mention her name, but the law woman who was very strong in the Kimberley, she taught me as a very young woman and said, if you have one drop of blood that is Aboriginal, then you are Aboriginal. That is how we regard people. When I say we, I'm talking about for the mob. That's how each of us regard each other. We don't worry about, it's not our concern about the percentage of that. That's a white fella way of trying to separate and rule and divide. We just say, if you have Aboriginal in your blood, you're one of us. There's that. And then also we adopt people. So whether or not you had that drop of blood, we could see in you that you were family. And so we would adopt you. There's many stories of the old people adopting some of the white settlers, and particularly the explorers on their way through, and helped save their lives, as a matter of fact. And so we are inclusive. And the story of Aboriginal Australia with the massacres and the genocide has been a horrendous story. And I'm hoping and praying and feel that it will come as part of the truth-telling that needs to come out as part of a treaty that may be forming behind the scenes. That I'm very hopeful that we need to do a proper welcome to country of all of those who've come to these shores, since in the last 250 years. It's actually 250 years since this happened. So, welcoming your ancestors, our ancestors, having a proper ceremony to welcome people to country, I think is going to make things right in the proper way. But until that can happen, we're still piecing together, what has really happened to our people. Not to mention that there's been a lot of infighting in amongst the people, in amongst our mobs, caused from colonialism and a lot of lateral violence. And you're not black enough. You've taken our money. A lot of terrible things. So at this time, and the purpose of this conversation, I understand, is to say it's enough. We're now coming into unity consciousness. Right? We are now coming into a new way, a new dreaming, and that is about black fella, white fella, yellow fella, red fella, all walking together. Not one superior than another. It's about all of us walking together. And to be able to do that, we have to acknowledge in ourselves any little bit where there's been some racism or some form of separation, some form of isolation. And the consciousness that I can feel for humanity to move through is being worthy. Okay? There's been a general feeling of worthlessness. And I'm turning that around and saying to each of you that you are worthy, and you are worthy of love. You are worthy of community. You have a sacred place here on this planet. You have a sacred place in your neighbourhood. You have a sacred place in your family. You have a sacred place with Mother Earth. Come together, and together we will rise. Together we can step through the old songlines, the old stories are no longer serving us. It's a time for the new. So this has been the teachings that have been given to me specifically for the last 8 years, but I've had the beginnings of that way back 40 years ago. And as I've sat with each different elder and sat with them again and again, this is coming through strong. And the old people, the old law keepers, they were doing work for this time quietly, but they were doing it. They were preparing in their spiritual leadership. They were preparing us for this time. So it's truly upon us. We can be whatever we want to be now, providing it do no harm. So the stories are broad and deep, but for each of us, what can we do is that we make sure we connect with each other, and we can do that. This Zoom thing is incredible. That's one way. There's another way, just to, once we start to get out and about, actually notice people, hold them, hold their gaze, and send a dollop of love to them. Look at people. in the eye. I mean, Aboriginal way, the old people used to not look at each other because it was a sign of respect, but I think that's shifting. It has to. We've got to know when that respect is and when to actually hold someone in a loving gaze. And it's almost like from your heart, you're saying, you know, from a compassionate place, I hold you in sacredness.
Well, that's an amazing introduction, Auntie. Thank you so much. There's 101 things that stimulate me, and one of them is actually knowing who you are. And it feels to me from your story is that it took all this time, and there were many clues into it, where you were finding that you know, you're placed back into the people, you know, the people of this continent. And you know, somebody like me who's roving, I've been all around the world, staying in different places, and you know, wondering exactly where it is that I connect. You know, I hear you talking, and I can feel this connection, you know, to humanity. Like what you're providing to me is a way of seeing that humanity is within myself, and that we've got this opportunity to connect. And you know, particularly what you're talking about with the you know, being able to reach to a person from a place of compassion. So thank you. I deeply appreciate you know, that introduction. I wonder if you could just, you know, most of our listeners are outside of Australia, and so, you know, their knowledge of you know, Aboriginal culture is scant. You're talking about songlines, and this is a very interesting concept to me. But I wonder if you could just sort of explain a little bit more about songlines and this notion of the old songlines and how these songlines are actually being created today.
This is going to take a long time, but I have to. So I'm not going to do it justice in a very short shum, but let's see how I go.
Okay.
So, traditional way. All right, I'm going. How far I have to go back? So we started off saying that, you know, each mob had their area. All right. So there was, let's say, 250 different mobs in Australia. Somehow we were all related. We knew how we were related. That's part of our cultural law. So through our kinship system, but we were given from from Biome over this side of the continent, from Te Chukapa in the middle of the country, and over your side would be the Wandjina up north. Whatever that spiritual belief, we're all connected. The divine we're calling today. Traditionally, we have our particular creator being. So the creator being, we say, and I was given white whale dreaming from Nana, from the Noongar law holders. Actually, it wasn't just her, from the law holders there. And the white whale, I'm one of the law holders for the white whale. And so we say that we were given the records from the Star Maidens. The records came in from the Pleiades, from the Seven Sisters, and given to the whale and taken across the continent. And as she came across the continent, and other nations will talk about this, other mobs will say it was the Seven Sisters that gave him that, or others will say it's a Pleiades. You know, but the Pleiades is not an Aboriginal term. But anyway, we say the Seven Sisters. But in creating this continent, they gave us a boundary and said, this is your area to look after, and your job is to keep everything alive. And that meant that in this particular area, so if I use my own example, in the Adnamatna, we have a family totem of my mob, my particular group, subgroup, skin group, is emu. So I've got to look after emu. My family kin look after emu because emu is our cousin. All right. So we look after emu. Can't eat it. You've got to make sure there's enough. The environment's right for the emu. And we would sing to emu about emu as we travelled through country. All right. As an emu would be one of our songlines. If I went to Pitjantjatjara country, and I have done, they can eat emu. So they would say, oh, come, delicacy for them. They'll put an emu on the barbie. Like, not a shrimp, it'd be an emu on the fire. A shrimp on the barbie, an emu on the fire. But I can't eat emu because it's my totem. So I look after emu here. Pitjantjatjara, I'm not sure what their totem is, but let's say it's eagle, because Nana actually is Pitjantjatjara in her lineage. And I know she's a black eagle, so eagle. So she's, they would make sure that they've got to look after everything to do with eagle. Other communities, my community will eat kangaroo. Other communities, kangaroo is their totem. They make sure. So that way it was all balanced. Yeah. So I'm getting to the songlines. So that's a little bit about the totem, but the songlines were the boundary. Okay, so it made sure that we sang up all of that, all that was within our area, so that everything stayed alive. We had a song for everything that was in our country. And to travel across our country, we would needed to know the song, because just imagine there was no buildings or anything else. It was a natural landscape. And to know, Aboriginal people always knew where they were. They would just sing the song and they knew where they were in relation to everything else. So it traditionally was travelling on the land. Sorry, I've just moved my computer. Travelling on the landscape across country. Now, to cross into someone else's country, you needed to know the song, to know where you were. And you got taught that song in a welcome to country ceremony. That's the truth of what welcome to country really means. You were given the song. And that's because when you cross our country, we're responsible for your safety. So we have to give you the song so that you know where to dig for yams, where to get that bush tucker, where the sacred sites are, where the women's sites are, where the men's sites are, where as a woman you can go and where as a man you can go. And they're different sites. So there's a whole lot in the song, but it's like a melody travelling across the country. Now, we have human songlines. And these are the teachings I've been given, that in our human self, if you like our stories are a bit like our songline of the past. And when we say we need to sing, you need to sing yourself up. You need to sing your new songline. Right? So as a human, you can do that. And then you do that with Mother Earth, because Mother Earth has changed. Our old songlines, most of them have finished. There'll be some that are continuing, and those ones are continuing where traditionally the cultural is still alive and well, and they continue to sing their songs. Beautiful, bless them. But in many places, our songlines have been disturbed. And I know that in Western Australia, for example, in the Pilbara region, there's been a lot of disturbance and a lot of conflict in the communities there, because the mining has really disturbed the songlines. And not only that, our songlines have got a spirit with them that travel underground. And the spirits get really disturbed when the songlines haven't been sung or the songlines have been distorted. And this is where, it's almost like we're coming out of the medieval period of the dark thoughts that we've had as humanity. And that has held a dark energy, a flattened energy, a suppression over the spirit of the land and over the spirit of the people. And to change that, we need to renew songlines. We need to sing new songlines. We need to sing ourselves up so that we're helping the spirit of the land to come alive again, and to embrace and sing to the trees, to the birds, to the lizards, to the kangaroo, to the possum, for them to the koala in particular, to be bringing them back and singing them up so that their spirit is part of this new evolution. I hope I'm making sense. I'm getting a bit excited about what I'm saying.
It's wonderful what you're saying. So it's connecting the spirits of the animals as well as the earth spirits and so on into your expression, and your expression is the song, and the song is also outside of yourself as well. So it's multi-dimensional. So I'm sure people are, collecting into to what you're saying, and it was something that I wasn't aware of. Like I've experienced many welcome to country, over my time here in Western Australia, but I didn't realise that what I was doing was actually connecting into the songs, that I was being welcomed to the song and showing the song of the country, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
It actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realise, and so that's why I'm starting to teach that more publicly now, because people in Australia have some understanding of a welcome to country, but don't really get it, what it means. And I'm just told you, I told your listeners that actually there's a really important ceremony, very important. And and the ancestors are still with us, the spirit of the land, the ancestors, the traditional custodians in the spirit world, those ancestors are there, and they are watching, looking, listening. And when you ask permission, and then you are given permission, like through a welcome to country, then they support you to thrive in that country. Okay. If you don't ask permission to be there or to cross country, then you don't have the assistance that's available to you in the other realms.
Yeah. So really what you're talking about is, you talk about the sort of white fella interference with what's going on and the atrocities and everything else. And, clearly that violent approach that the white fella brought here, there was no respect at all for anything to do with these songs. No. There's just absolutely no respect.
No, they didn't understand. They didn't know about it. They just thought Aboriginal people were flora and fauna. We were vermin. And so we were to be exterminated. And there were government policies around extermination that came from the British imperialism.
Yeah.
So it's an old story, but, it hasn't gone away because it's in the DNA, the genetic coding, the human songline that carries the stories. And so when we say it's time to finish, and it is finishing, the old songlines are finished, and where the new dreaming has come in, and part of that is for everybody to actually become aware, educate yourself on what the truth is, so that we can all come together and unite as one people, as one voice. Even though there's a lot of difference amongst us, thank goodness there is. It'd be pretty boring if we were all the same. But to have a unique moment in history right now, where we can, through social media, which has been an incredible invention, to actually be connecting. And if I might say that the internet is like a crisscross, like a blueprint across the earth, right? Well, that's what we're talking about. When I talk to you about the songlines, it's like a blueprint across the land, right? And if you can sing yourself up where you are, and you can, for those who are clairvoyant, some of them can actually see the song lines, but their energy lines. And if you start to sing yourself up, and I've had lots of inquiries from people all over the world actually about how to do this. So I said in my videos to start humming or start toning, and feel, and tone with your heart open, and you will feel the difference. And the land and all nature will sing back to you. Every little plant has a little diva in it. Okay? Everything has a spirit in it, because it's all alive. And you're singing to the spirit of the land. And if ever you take something from the land, You know, if you're walking along the shore and you pick up a shell, just check, do I have permission to take this with me? Because I really love it, you know. Do I have permission? And feel the permission coming in or not. People are more in tune these days and more sensitive, and realise that there's some things you shouldn't take. Some things need to stay where they are. So even to that, you know, getting used to asking permission for something from the land, because it's got its place there. And often you'll be given that permission if you ask the right way.
So one of the questions I can feel sort of arising in people who are going to be listening to this is that, you know, the songlines, it is about permission, and it's about being able to recognise them. It's about being able to recognise, and we come up with the B word, it's the boundaries. So, you know, just talk us through the issue around ownership, really. Probably a big question, but
yeah, it is. So it's a very political question, actually, because the Aboriginal people have been dispossessed from their traditional lands, and it's not that they owned the land; they're the custodian of the land, and the custodian means you look after, you take responsibility for every living thing in your boundary, in your area, in your land, in your country, as we'd say. You know, everything is alive. So where I'm from, the Adnyamathanha areas, the Northern Flinders Ranges, is rock country. So we're the rock people. Those rocks tell stories too. They've got energy in them. And they've been sung to, and they talk to us, and they give us information about being there. So being dispossessed means you've been forced off your country, which is what you've known and all for what since the dawn of time. You know, the Aboriginal people were on their land, and to be forced off, like herded like cattle off that land, is it's a tearing apart of who we really are, because we are the land. The land is us. And if there's been a sickness, it's like a sickness has come in. A sickness is coming to humanity, actually, all over. But that's what happened to us. And that sickness brought with it, I don't mean just disease and you know, a physical sickness. It was a spiritual sickness. And the spiritual sickness can be healed if we can Aboriginal people can forgive big time, but they need to be acknowledged. The story needs to be acknowledged. So they've been dispossessed from their land, and the truth is squished down of what actually happened to our own people, and the fact that being taken from our spiritual land has created a spiritual sickness. And I'm sure that this would be similar for other people in other countries, you know, that feeling of, I don't feel well here, I'm not well, and I'm talking about your spirit. And so to sing yourself up is to call back your spirit from wherever it had been disconnected from. Call your spirit back home by singing yourself up. And so for the old people who passed with a broken heart, where our children got taken. My parents, both of my parents, were removed from their families at an early age. We're not the only ones. There's a whole generation that got lost, generations that got lost. And we're still only really now starting to reconnect, like I was reconnected, but even then, that's become a bone of contention. Not because I'm light-skinned, because a lot of us are light-skinned, and I do look like some of the elders, and I have the somatotype of an Adnyamathanha woman, which is short and plump, as my beautiful elders tell me, with humour. The Adnyamathanha women are short and plump. It's the fact that the story has been broken, the song has been broken. And it's and the custodianship that really connected us to country has been broken. And, you know, there's no point trying to reinvent whatever the culture was, as some of the younger ones are trying to do. It's actually to get the truth. So we need the truth from our elders who are just about on the edge of leaving. That last, you know, the old people now with us are the last group who had the connection to the old way, and now we have this new way. And this is now the time of the beginning of the next 7 generations to bring back the stories, bring back the song. And I don't mean the old song, because we may not know that. I'm talking about bring back the song in you. Bring back the song of you connecting to country. So wherever you are, if you were to take seriously being a custodian of the land upon which you are on, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not so much ownership. And if you're in an apartment, adopt a tree. Yeah. Go to the park, a local park or a local garden, and adopt that as your piece of Mother Earth to sing with. And you'll be amazed at what happens. If you sing to your garden, it will grow incredibly.
Absolutely. So, you know, clearly, you know, this wisdom of the old people is definitely applicable across the globe. You know, there's no question. And, you know, we have this sort of diaspora of, you know, particularly white fellas that have just gone everywhere in the world and they're completely lost. And, you know, I mentioned earlier that I'm one of them. I've been wandering around the world trying to find out where home is. And what you were telling me, your advice to everybody that I'm hearing is that I need to start singing, and I need to start singing to the environment to actually make connection where I am at the moment, and to connect into, for me, what my song was, what my song is in relationship to that custodian role. This morning I got up, I worked very late last night, and I got up this morning, and the very first thing I did was I walked outside and went and talked to my vegetables. And, you know, it's this connection, for me, it's a connection to the earth and so on. I hadn't thought of it exactly in the way that you're talking about, but I can see such parallels. But I'm definitely going to have a go at singing. I'm going to sing.
Yeah, good.
I'm going to sing to it, yeah. So ordinarily in these interviews, we're asking people questions about how they view, you know, the pandemic, and you have talked about the fact that there's an opportunity for people to connect in new ways with the technology and that type of thing. But and you've also mentioned that, you know, you feel as though it is a bit of a wake-up call. Tell me about the vision running forward. What's the vision running forward coming out of this crisis and so on?
I've just got to tune in. So what we do now is the beginning of the next 7 generations. All right. Each of us are the custodian of the future. Each of us can make a difference to our generations, our lineages going forward. Our beliefs need to be cleaned up. Old beliefs that no longer work for us. We need the wake-up call is that much of what we were told to believe in was an illusion. All right? So here we are at the beginning, on the threshold of a new wave of consciousness. So whatever you believe, whatever you think, you're going to give energy to it. We are energy. We are consciousness. We are light and sound. So you are creating the new you, but you're also creating a new ancestral pattern for the future. Imagine that you're the future ancestor. It starts here. You know, bring through what works for you. And we're bringing through, I would say compassion would be the vibration. whatever is compassionate. You can ask yourself whatever you think, whatever you're doing, whatever you're about to say, catch yourself and go, has this got a vibration of compassion to it? And if it doesn't, don't do it. And if you could tweak it to put some compassion, an element of compassion into what you're about to say, what you're about to do, then do it. So we are at the threshold of bringing through the best of humanity, of why we are all here now on earth. And it's to bring through compassion. And while I'm at it, let's add joy to that. Let's add joy. Does this give you joy? What you're doing, what you're saying, or not saying, as the case might be. Check. Does this give me joy? And you know what? If it doesn't, don't do it. If trudging to work every day in the way that you have been, if that was a trudge and it did not give you joy, then don't do it. Do it differently. Do it in a way, if you choose to still do that kind of work, choose a way that will give you joy. If it's driving to work, how can you make it joyful? All right? Compassion and joy. We need to uplift humanity's compassion, but also the empathy, the things that humanity is really good at. We need to ignite our spirit again. We need to be more of that light-hearted, compassionate being that we are divinely that. That is what our soul print is. I hope that I'm going off at a tangent, I suspect, but...
No, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So as a, what you're talking about, this generation, 7 generations running forward here.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That's where I was at. I forgot about that. I forgot where I was. Thank you.
That's how, like, if you're running from joy and compassion, then it's not a burden to be the grandfather of the next 7 generations.
That's right.
There's no burden on me to do that, because I'm just sitting here in joy. I'm in connection with the world out my window, and the environment and trees and so on. And I'm operating from joy and love and compassion and so on. It's not a hardship. It is a boundary, but it's not a boundary. It's open, it's completely open, but it's also a boundary. It's a requirement. I think this is wonderful wisdom that you're sharing with us. It's really, really good.
And I have had quite a lot, oh my gosh, it's been amazing response from all over the world. And I've had a lot of healing sessions with people all over the world, and I've tuned into, they're right on the cusp, a threshold of bringing joy in, and just needing to clean their energy field up, cleaning up their thoughts, cleaning up the old to make way for the new. And very much I would encourage your listeners to do that, actively clean up their belief systems, clean up the thought forms they've created. Because although we feel like we might be individual, you just said, I'm in a boundary, I've got to stay separate and I'm confined, as we say, or we've all been confined to our rooms, that in actual fact we are all connected. In the field, the vibrational field, we are all connected, because we are all in it. It's all energy. We're all vibrating and we're all connected, and we'll support each other in that. If we're open to receive the love that's in the air, that the compassion that's there, then we are giving out more. I'm going off a tangent again. What was the point I wanted to make? 7 generations. Yes, so the people that collectively, I would say, that I've been working with, are really, they're all right on the edge of what I call popping into that new world. And they just needed some support to just clear the energy field. So I really highly recommend that you do that, so that the love and the joy and the knowing, the wisdom is there to access once you allow that to come in. But we've got to get rid of what I call the dregs in the coffee cup. So if you've had a cup of coffee, you've got some dregs in it, and you go to have another cup of coffee, it's not quite clean, is it? It's got the dregs of the old still in there, tainting it. So clean out, clean yourself up. And it might sound easier, than it is for some, and I appreciate that will be difficult for many, but get going with it, because this is the beginning of the new. You know, what you do now has an effect, has a reverberation effect of 7 generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a pause. There's something landing. Yeah.
Well, it's a pause of recognition, and it's a pause of recognition inside all of ourselves. And what I'm contemplating at the moment is the way in which, you know, the old songlines, as you say, like they've run their course largely, and you know, there's the requirement to create new songlines which are connecting to the spirits. But it's connecting, this is the bit that I was just contemplating then, is that we're still recognizing the spirits that are in the land. So I wouldn't be unique in this, but as I, you know, move around you know, the local area, or if I go to another city even, you know, I'm aware of the spiritual beings actually in the land and in the trees and so on. And this going forward with the new songlines is recognizing what is already there, but without it being the old songline. That's what I'm trying to get you know, connected to, that process. So the new songlines actually include what's there, whereas what the white fellas tried to do was actually abandon everything that was there, or deny it, or whatever. So
cut it all down.
Cut it down. So that was the white fella approach. And what we're looking at is a complete alternative to that, which is to recognize that which is there, but also create your song.
Okay, so I'm feeling to say, because I'm being impulsed to say that
I understand, yeah.
the land holds the memory. Okay, there are the memory codes are still in the land, and the ancestors in spirit world are still there. So whatever was there before is still in the code of the land. All right, it may not be returned to how it was, where there was a forest is now a city, but the land remembers. So even walking down the street in a city, you can, if you tune in to the earth below you and to the trees around you and to the sky above you, you can actually feel the energy of the land, and you can sing to that. You know, even just in yourself, you can, you know, see what comes up. And I feel that connection is very strong, still possible. But it'll be a new song. The old is finished there. The new song, let it come through you. And whether it be in your language, whether it be in light language, whether it be in Mother Earth's language. Here in Australia, we had the language that was each group had, each tribe, is the language of the land. It's what the land gave us, that language of the area that we're on. And so we learnt to speak to the trees and to the kangaroo, to the emu. We learnt to speak to the bird. We knew their language. That was their language became our language. That's how we got our language. And that's been, in a lot of places, that's been lost, or there is some revival happening in certain places here in Australia with the original language coming back, which is a wonderful thing. But you could also use the tone of the solfeggio toning, which is the natural chanting tone. And the 432 hertz is actually the tone of Mother Earth. So that kind of toning can also help, and it'll also help you. So if anybody's having trouble sleeping, you know, that sort of toning will help your body to correct. And by the way, while I'm talking about that and lining, try and line yourself up in your sleeping pattern north-south so that you wake up east-west. You wake up in the east, preferably, and, you know, go to sleep facing the west, which is when the sun goes down. That's our way of sorting it. But your electromagnetic field is in a line with Earth. And if you're trying to sleep across the magnetic Earth, then you're going to have a disturbed sleep. Mm-hmm. So if that's happening to you, check. Are you sleeping north-south? You know, preferably head to the north, but can't always do that. You know, maybe you head to the south. Songlines, back to connecting to Mother Earth. Yeah, so the old notes are there for sure, but we're bringing it through. So the old people said to me, it is now the return of the old law in a new way.
Okay.
The traditional law is coming back, but it's coming back in a new way.
Yeah.
So what is there in the land, the memory codes are still there. Mm. But also in many parts of the world, there's been a lot of death and destruction. That is coded in the land as well. Mm. Here in Australia, I've done heaps of land clearings of where the souls have been trapped. The same will happen in places like Europe, I'm thinking of in particular. And it would be wonderful if there were people there who could actually release those old souls and bring in new energy. But again, the truth has to be told, just like Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's eyes open, but without having to be attached to the suffering. It's bringing compassion and understanding and love to the truth, as you say. And but moving forward based on what's experienced now, but what's experienced now is going to be the old as well.
That's right. Yeah.
The existing and original will be part of the current experience. I find this incredibly useful, what you're telling us, Auntie, and you know, particularly from the perspective of when people become deeply attached to something, you know, the old ways or the truth. This is part of my own truth, is that I realise that there is no such thing as the truth. It's just what we hold, what we're actually holding on to, and the harder we hold on to ourselves as actually knowing something or being right or whatever else, the more difficult it becomes to actually move forward. It's the fundamental aspect of my thinking anyway. And you know, what you're talking about here is not to hold on to it, recognise it, and be honest about it, be confronting, actually confront. Very, very last thing I'd like you to speak to, if you wouldn't mind, is this notion of the victim and the bully. So the whole of this summit has had this focus around getting away from a structure of a victim and a bully and being able to lift out of it into a new reality. Now, you've spoken a lot about a new reality and the new songs and so on, but I wonder if you could just talk about you know, the impact on, you know, the people of the land in terms of this victim and bully duality, and how people here in Australia can actually lift out of it.
Wow, that's a big question. So my understanding, first of all, is that there's a persecutor somewhere in there. Sure. So there's the victim and bully, but there's a persecutor, so it's like a triangle. Okay. And so any of those positions can be taken up by any of the others. So to dissolve and disintegrate that is to actually do the healing work of within. So what is in us? What is in me that has been the victim? And clean that up. What is in me that has been the persecutor? And what is in me that has been the bully? Because the more that I can clean that up, and I do that by acknowledging it, just exactly what you said, bringing it out, acknowledging it, apologising, to whoever, whenever we were that in this lifetime or any other lifetime, and we seek their forgiveness. And you could do this in a spirit form. They don't have to be with you. You say, I apologise, I ask for forgiveness. Please forgive me, and I set you free. And then in this, as the bully, let's say, we bring up those situations and we look at ourselves squarely in the face and we say, oh my gosh, I've been the bully too. Please forgive me. I wasn't skilled at the time. I didn't know how else to express my frustration or anger, whatever was going on. Please forgive me, and I set you free. And then we look at ourselves, and in all of these scenarios, we look at ourselves and we say, I now forgive myself. I forgive myself for all the times when I was not skillful. I forgive myself for words that had hurt others. I forgive myself for my own criticism and my own judgment on myself and on others. And in doing that, in forgiving myself, I set myself free. So in all of those scenarios, my elders have taught me that Aboriginal people are the greatest at forgiveness. We have had some incredible atrocities happen to our people and horror stories. And yet my elders say to me, we choose to forgive because it sets us free. We don't forget the lesson, but it sets us free. So whether you're a persecutor, victim, or the bully, you know, that we have been all of that. We have been all of that ourselves. And let's look at what's in our energy field and be brave. Feel what you need to feel. Let it, and tears, by the way, is energy moving, so it's really a good way of clearing. Clean it up in your own energy field and stop blaming others for how you feel. It's actually in you. So here is a spiritual law, and I may be doing my next video on this one, and a grandmother teaching. Wise words. Whatever you see in the other person is in you. If you see hatred, bad behaviour, corruption, then where in you does that lie? And where in you does that need to be cleaned up? And it may not be on the surface in a conscious way. It's probably really deep and dark in you, but it can be cleaned up so that you no longer need to have that come to you in your field for you to heal, because you would have done the healing. And it sets you free, and energetically it sets all of those other people free, beings free, energetic free.
So you're talking about the way in which we bind others and ourselves into what you're seeing as a triad. And to forgive is the master skill to actually provide freedom out of it. Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Auntie Mulara, it has been an incredible pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. And I do hope that our paths cross again.
Blessings to everybody.
Yeah, sing some songs together. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, we'll just thank all those who came in for this conversation in the unseen world.
Yeah.
And we give divine blessings from the grandmothers to all of your listeners and to you.
Thank you.